Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Blacklist, Season 10, Episode 20. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So on some technical level, this is like the penultimate episode. Obviously, it's set up for the finale. It's going to be a back-to-back episode, but it's a really, once again, it's 21 and 22, but, it kind of serves as a little bit of a penultimate episode, but closing the door on a lot of stuff. Well, first and foremost, obviously, Hudson got his meeting with the AG, which the AG's like, cool, I already know about Task Force 836 and what they do. Blah, 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 blah. They get results, so it's fine, whatever. It's clandestine thing you're not supposed to know about, especially someone in Hudson's position. But the moment he drops the info about Raymond Reddington, that changes everything, because it's like, this ain't just no regular criminal. Once again, this is the guy that's been on the most wanted, FBI's most wanted list for decades. So it changes the equation when you're like, wait, that's the informant? Once again, it is a situation where the government signed off on it, so that is also the tricky thing of it. But it's like, yeah, but all the bugging that took place in the Capitol building we learned about last episode, yeah, that was him. To be fair, and, that is the only thing that really applied conversation-wise, because I think that's all that really matters on a U.S. front. But to be fair, he bugged a lot of different countries. He bugged a lot of official buildings around the world. So I don't know if they got that part of the recording or not. They probably did, because he ended up, well, who knows? Like, he wasn't able to get the rewind of all the recording, only up to probably where it started recording, maybe. So I don't think he got the full context of the conversation, only that bit that really mattered the most. So, because in that part, Harold doesn't really talk about every other building, that's only the Capitol building. But it's like, yeah, he bugged a lot of places. So that's information that he only shared with Cynthia. It doesn't come up later on with all those other, but yeah. So Hudson's got what he wants. It's like, right, Harold and the entire task force, they're on the chopping line. The saddest thing is when he sits down with Cynthia and be like, oh yeah, we're going to have to dig our grave someday, but it won't be today. You're like, Jesus, you don't know. You are all waiting, you're all saying all this, like not knowing that the gallows are waiting for you, That's kind of like the heartbreaking situation of it all. Like, it's, oh man, the executioner's right there, got the ropes ready for you, and you just don't even know it yet, and you've kind of hung yourself without even realizing it, and without even knowing it. But some other interesting things, obviously, Reddington continuing to close this chapter in his life, essentially, because he even says, like, this one ran a little bit longer than it probably could and should have. We see him giving Hetty like that bird sanctuary. He's like, yeah, I bought it for you and I gave it to you. You're going to run it, It's like, to be fair, Red does owe Hetty a lot. Like, a lot. Especially at last season when she was kind of on the chopping block because they thought she was a traitor when in actuality it was Marvin. But still, like, she came pretty close. She was pretty, like, still okay with Reddington afterwards. Understandable. Anyone wouldn't blame her for being miffed, but she handled it with grace, so because Hetty is someone we like. I think that's the last time we saw Hetty in the show, if I'm not mistaken. It's when it was revealed. Like, I think when Marvin was revealed to be the traitor, I think that was the last time we saw Hetty. Maybe, if I remember correctly. I don't remember if that was a separate episode from the time she got locked up and stuff, or whether that was a different episode. But I think, yeah, because Hetty doesn't pop up that often, pops up from time to time. You know what I thought was really interesting, too? When he was talking to Teddy, he referenced Smokey. I was like, man, I haven't heard you say Smokey's name in a while. Because I'm about to say, he's like, yeah, because Smokey had, like, the dog perm business or whatever, dog carrying, animal carrying business. And it's like, yeah, Smokey. Wasn't that season 6 he died? Or was that his introduction? I think it was earlier he had an introduction, but he died in season... Didn't Red throw him out of a plane? Because I remember, like, he was embezzling money from Red's operations, and Red found out about it and killed him. Because Hetty and Smokey seemed like they were going to be kind of like the new companions that he kind of had, like, almost filling that void of, like... They both kind of filled a void of Kate, So, because that was, like, post... Kate's betrayal and her death. So I don't know if I'm remembering that correctly. But like I said, I think Smokey died. It might have been season 7, but I think it's season 6. But either way, it was just kind of interesting hearing Smokey's name again. It's like, right, talking about him in such a... It's like, yeah, he was a traitor and he stole from me, but at the end of the day, he still, handled like that business with pizzazz, because he's offering it to Teddy, because Teddy's like, oh, I need to get a new job, because he's like, right, but Red's like, why don't you get something with less screaming, less torturing? Find something that you can. He's like, oh, some animal. He's like, what do I know about animals? I don't know, Teddy. I don't know why I look around here and think and assume you'd want to get in something business related with animals. It's like, you do know enough about animals. To be fair, I get it, because he has a very niche understanding of animals. Oh, I know how they can be used to hurt and break the human mind and body, but but it's like, you got to know enough about animals to know how to utilize them in a torturous manner. I think it's still applicable of like you being able to help out animals, of all the different animals you utilize for your work. But it's like, yeah, he only wants to do work because Red's like, you don't need the money. You've got millions saved up. It ain't like you really spent it, but he's like, he's got a family he doesn't want to be around. Because we know like his son was being set up to kind of take over the family business. So I guess it's like, you're going to retire that entirely. So not unless his son goes works for someone else. But Red's kind of made it clear, like when he's kind of like giving everyone their severance pay, he's making sure they never work for anyone else. It's like, right, you did what you did for me. I don't want anyone else cropping up in my place. Like everyone else can try and come for the throne when it's all said and done, but my network and my people won't be there to assist him doing it. So I'd assume like he'd kind of put the kibosh on Teddy's son working for someone else. So, and it's like, right, find a new family business to kind of take part in, because Red had his meeting with Weecha and trying to decide what they're going to do about the future, because he's his place he's currently staying at, he's having it like basically taken in as like a special site of like, to be looked after, and like obviously he has to be out by the end of the month, and it's like, yeah, I'm totally fine with that. But it's like almost like a historical place is what he's having it labeled as, because it was like, he even said like it's been around since like the 1910s at least. And he even said, like, it was a temporary hospital during the 1918s, so it has pretty, like, significant history to it. So he wants the place taken care of, because the place is taking care of him for quite a while. So he wants to kind of make sure that's kind of paid for, especially how historically important the place is. But anyway, him and Weecha are talking about the future. It's like, oh, let's kind of run away together. And she has her job and her circumstances, but it's like, yeah, but it's like, you working there is kind of dangerous. She's like, being by your side is pretty dangerous. So it's just like, right, it's like, right, we love each other, we care about each other so much, but the problem is that we are the people we are. We live in that dangerous world. All we've known for so long is danger, and that thrill and that excitement. The moment we walk away from that, like, we're gonna miss it. And so one of us one day will get bored and kind of want to run back to that world. It's just only a matter of time. And who knows, And does Red have an answer for that? And he's like, no, I kind of don't, So he's planning on taking a trip. It feels like when he said that, it already felt like this might be the end, and who knows if I'll ever return. He makes it seem like, oh, no, I'll come back. It won't be forever, but it seemed like it could have been, even before the circumstances of the episode. So he's like, Rita, meet me at 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock will be the deadline. You don't have to think about it right now, but do give it some thought. If you're there, cool, we can go off together. But if you're not, at the very least, I will know your decision and I'll accept that. He was even talking to Teddy of like, right, she doesn't even have to go with me. All she has to do is show up and at the very least tell me herself that she's not going. That's at least better, I was like, well, you're kind of expecting a little bit of a Casablanca ending or something. It felt like that's what he was kind of aiming for. It's like, if I don't get what I fully want, at the least I want a Casablanca type of circumstances. But like Teddy being like, oh, if it was me, I don't know anything about Weecha. But he's like, if it was me, I love my wife, I've been with her forever. But if it was in your situation, I take off early. And it's like, oh, you don't know anything about love, Teddy. And he's like, well, apparently you don't need the Red. So we also got potentially a final appearance from Tadashi. Was that earlier this season or was that last season? I'm blanking now. No, it had to be this season, right? Where like Tadashi's mom got like even more involved. I think she was already tangentially connected, but even more so. Yeah, it had to be this season because I was blurring last season and this season. It's like, no, it was earlier this season when Tadashi and his mom were working for Red and helping out the task force and everything. He even had that beautiful moment with Agnes where she's like, right, are you going to go away? Because I'm going to miss you. He's like, it's okay. I will always be here. And I'm like, I love that type of stuff, because once again, me and my nerdy bag, it makes me think of like Kingdom Hearts. It's like, right, we are connected by our hearts. We are, no matter where I am, if you're looking for me, I'll always be here. It's like more that's personified the most with Sora and Pooh's relationship, because he's like, oh, I don't want you. He's like, don't worry. All you have to do, you never have to go too far, and points to Pooh's heart. And it's like, yeah, Winnie the Pooh. Points to Winnie the Pooh's heart. And it's like, right, I'm always going to be here. You never have to look that far to find me. It's kind of like that same sentiment. And kisses of forehead. It's like, right, I'm in your heart, I'm in your memories and your mind. So I'm never going to be too far away. That was beautiful because he probably knows like this might be one of the last times he gets to see Agnes, and his final gift to her was like, right, gave her Elizabeth badge, because it's like, right, today's a very important day. I wonder if it's, I guess the way he said it, I was like, is it like her anniversary or something? I was like, no, it could be her birthday because that would have come up before now. It's probably the anniversary of her becoming an FBI agent. When she first became an FBI agent, it's probably the anniversary of that, and gave her Liz's badge, and it's like, right, let this be a reminder kind of that you can do anything and that your mom is there with you, but also like try to pick something more fun than law enforcement. It's like, yeah, but even with law enforcement, it brought a lot of fun to Liz, especially when on occasion she went a little dark side. I think speaking of season 6, she'd always been a little bit like Red, but season 6 is the season she really started acting like Red. She really had like a lot of fun. I mean, to be fair, season 8 when she went fully against Red and the task force is when she was probably the most like Red, but season 6 she really started leaning in to a lot of her Redisms, and then even he took notice of it. He's like, oh, this is interesting. You could also tell it bothered him because he didn't like her becoming too much like him. It's like, don't do as I say but not as I do, type of situation, I believe. But with all that said, the task force, you have the team trying to figure out, like, well, what are we going to do with what Reddington's doing? Like, why is he dismantling his entire system? And obviously, Herbie bringing up this point of like, well, what happens to this task force? Like, what do you mean? It's like, well, essentially everything Red's kind of destroying right now is integral to the Blacklist. So like, what is this task force without the Blacklist? He's like, I just got my desk set up the way I want to do, which I'm like, no, I get it, Herbie. That's why I feel so bad, because like him and the actress who plays Sia were only in this scene. I mean, obviously Herbie had popped up before now, but it's like, this is the first time like you've been, I don't know if they were considered like series regulars this season or not. Probably, maybe. But I felt so bad because I'm like, man, that's such a bummer, because I wish we had more time with you. I wish it wasn't just the final season that we got you, More Herbie, more Sia, I mean, even Sia was like, right, it was only a matter of time for I'd have to leave because I plan on going back to MI6, because the only reason why she came here was to get answers about her mom. She finally has it, and she stuck around even longer past that because it's like, right, she enjoyed this work. There was work connected to her mom, made her feel connected there, but also she enjoyed the work. It was interesting work, but, and obviously Dembe and Wrestler have been a part of this, obviously not, Dembe not being the position he's currently in, until more recent years. But, Wrestler, like, it is kind of sad to kind of see things kind of shift and change so much. But it's like, yeah, we got to figure out what Red's up to. He gets a call from Jill, goes to check on John. John's a mess, understandably, because he's riddled with guilt, and he ends up telling Wrestler the truth, and Wrestler doesn't blame him. He doesn't really have time. They're too busy putting out this giant fire that Hudson started, but like he didn't have like maybe if he was able to like spend more time with John and was able to kind of convince him like it's okay. He was already spiraling regardless, and it got worse, and it's so sad considering all the progress he made, and that's 100% on Hudson doing that, Regardless of, hey, that's the thing of like, you want to look at Reddington a certain way, you want to look at yourself one way, but it's like, you are the white knight, you are doing the right thing, but your pursuit of justice, your dogged pursuit, you were so focused on going after your target, you never thought about the casualties that would come along the way. You're like, oh, John, you'll be a hero, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't make it any easier that he felt like he betrayed the person he trusts most, the person who helped him with his sobriety, helping him get his life back on track. And now that he started down that route again, he spiraled because it's a beast that kept feeding itself. Like, probably the higher he got to try and forget, the more it just hurt him. And he's like, right, I'm trying to numb the pain. And, on jumping to the end, he ended up overdosing and dying. And Wrestler is going to hold that. It's like, right, Wrestler isn't Reddington's biggest fan. It's like, he's a means to an end. Because regardless of how, like, Cooper would always put it, like, Harold legitimately does consider Red a friend. Harold, Wrestler would never consider that. But it's like, no, because, like, that's the thing of, like, he's blamed Reddington for stuff of like, oh, it's your fault, but it's like, no, this is all on Hudson, his dogged pursuit for the truth, which is like, to be told, is him and Hudson would be cut from the same cloth, but Wrestler's changed so much. He's become a lot more flexible over the course of the years because of how much he's going through, how much he's changed. I'm sure like he wouldn't, because he's talked about how much working with Reddington has changed everybody. Like, it does something to you, but for the better in some capacities, I'm sure in worse in other capacities for Wrestler, like, the good and the bad. There's pros and cons. Obviously, I'm sure for Wrestler, he would focus entirely on the cons, but he's not as rigid and so so black and white about things like he used to be. There is that shade of gray, which he still struggles with, like recognizing it, but he recognizes that he just doesn't always want to follow that path of gray. He does want to see things so black and white, so simplified, like Arthur, but he, like I said, they are cut from the same cloth, but their experiences have made them two different people. But I think Arthur is who wrestler would have been in a different life. I mean, he even had to go toe to toe with an Arthur previously. When they like season 3, I want to say, it was season 4. Once again, wasn't his buddy Gabriel, who was a cop, who was like, that was when Kate was unearthing all the skeletons and trying to dismantle Red's organization and stuff and try to get Liz the truth. Like, his buddy Gabriel was investigating stuff, and he was kind of a dog without a bone. We saw how that ended up, trial and everything, and I think that definitely had to be season 4. Maybe it was post season 4, maybe it was like a season 5 situation. I don't remember. Either way, just you can tell in that moment, it's just going to be a situation where wrestler is like, I don't like Reddington, but Reddington has, in his own crooked way, he does have more honor in his mind than Arthur, because Reddington, like, yes, he uses and manipulates people. He wouldn't use someone like John the way Arthur did, so that's going to be like a major strike against Arthur in wrestler's book. But either way, kind of breaking down the rest of the episode, like I said, Cynthia and Harold had their conversation before Harold got to the gallows. He got the call from wrestler and you're walking into like a chainsaw situation. So they have to sit down and obviously being asked all these questions about Reddington. And Cooper's just like, right, this ain't the first rodeo over the course of the series. This is the worst it's gotten, but things have been pretty bad before too. Of like, I've had to answer these questions time and time again in this show, where it's a kind of like different people, same questions, hell, even the same rug. And for him, it's like, I'm tired. I did the job that I was meant to do. I don't like the fact is, people don't like the fact is it was Reddington, but we did a lot of good. I believe we did a lot of good in this world. I was kind of hired as just kind of a night watchman. That's all my duty was. And I served that duty, but I also did good along the way. Made sure to make the world at least a little bit better. And I'm proud to say the work me and my team did. So you want my badge? Here it is. And then Reddington, using Tadashi to kind of hack into the system, sends a message to everybody. He's like, well, I can hear you guys, but I can't see you. Hudson, there you are talking. And Hudson's going on and on, because like the AG is like, well, what about any proof of what the task force has done? He's like, yeah, about that. A few months ago, I basically deleted every file that had my name on it. To be fair, if you had read it, it would have been an amazing read. It's like, well, it's kind of a moot point now. It's like, I mean, Reddington didn't, like, he did that purely for, hey, I still don't know if he fully did that with the intention of, I never want another Wu Jing to get this close, or was it just because he's already burning the bridges of everything? The Wu Jing situation just kind of gave him the excuse. I think he'd already been laying the foundation in between season 9 and 10. He was already laying that foundation in that time skip frame. And then like this, hearing about Wu Jing gave him the opportunity of, I'm going to see this through. I'm going to close out everything. Everything has been leading to him closing out his business and making things good between him and those who've supported him over the years, those who've been loyal to him over the years. So, but he really went in on, because, hey, like, Arthur kept being like, look at this man has so much power, the fact is he could do this. And it's like, right, you want to sit there and judge Harold. Your beef, your fight is with me. I'm the one that did this. I'm the one that did that, not Harold. All they've ever done, despite what they've worked tirelessly. They've lost. They've put their lives on the line. And they have to stress that enough. Lost. They've lost good people along the way. Some of those people being, Mira and Liz. Didn't really get into that, but yes. But they've sacrificed a lot to bring in the bad guys that you wanted. And like they did good work time and time again this past decade. And what do they get for it? For you scrutinizing everything that they've done. And I love him it's like, right, the person I blame, you should be blaming is yourselves and you and your predecessors, because you wanted information from Raymond Reddington. You just didn't want to like have to work directly with me, because you want to be able to justify like, hey, I justify it to yourself so you don't have to feel guilty about it. Like, well, we got this information, but the source that it comes from, it's like you can't have it both ways. And that's what you want to have it both ways. You want to take my information, but you don't want to have to work directly with me. Well, I am me. I am who I am, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Your predecessors made a deal with the devil. You can't be pissed when I decided it's not to continue being the devil. And he's just like, you know what, I'm done. And closes that out. So before Arthur was like, you know what I was thinking? He was like, nor do I care. So let me take time to think. So the task force is being shut down and they're being questioned. Nixon as well as Arthur, even though he's just there he's supposed to be there in a neutral capacity of overseeing the investigation. So they're asking everyone questions about Sia, like, what was your part in it? Did you stick around to help with Reddington's like, no, I just enjoyed the work of this task force. They didn't really go into the nitty gritty of why she was here in the first place. I guess it's kind of a moot point because maybe the information's already there, so you hadn't, or maybe like we didn't get to that part of the conversation, but maybe she already talked about why she was there. Then we had the whole situation of Wrestler. It's like, hey, have you ever witnessed Reddington do anything illegal? He's like, are you for real? And then Jinbei is like, how did you become an FBI agent? He was like, you worked for Reddington for years. How did he's like, I applied and then I took the requirements, I applied and then I got hired. Simple as that. It's like, truth be told, it's like they had to kind of work around it on a legal standpoint, but he went through the proper channels and everything, so he's a legitimate FBI agent. So it's not like he was there under some false pretenses, especially because that was at a time he was no longer working for Red. He had separated himself from Red's organization. That was in between season 8 and 9, where Red was off the reservation, like had disappeared for like 2 years. But other than that, there was also the herald of it all of like, right, if you knew about these cameras, what would you have done? He's like, my job is to protect this country, not Reddington's interests. It's like, it usually always ended up coinciding. I mean, because also the thing that should be talked about too, but it doesn't really get brought up, it's like, I mean, it's kind of a moot point because it's like, right, he's had those there for God knows how long, gathering God knows what information, but at the end of the day, Reddington helped shut down his own operation, so the operations around internationally and domestically are all going when it comes to the room 417, was that it? The whole Capitol building situation, so it's like, Oh, and also Herbie being asked about, he's like, yeah, I need to leave by 4. They're like, are you not taking this seriously? He's like, do you want to be the one to have to explain why I have to kind of go through another sitter because you guys basically burned the bridge on this one? And it's also like, yeah, what about this picture of you and your daughter? He's like, yeah, it's me on a jet. And that's because Red probably invited him out, and that's also the same jet they end up tracking later. And Reddington's waiting because he's like, oh man, I don't want to leave without Weecha. But it's like, all right, I guess we're going to have to take off. And the plane takes off. I thought we were going to find out, like, okay, that's not the real plane. Because he's like, oh, they'll find the beacon, which they did, but I thought it was going to lead to a fake plane that's not actually Red's plane. But the plane took off and it exploded. I was wondering, I was like, are they going to make you sit there and think Red's dead? Because it's like, there's no way he is. Turns out he's not. He faked his death. We just showed up like 20 minutes late. He's like, you showed up 20 minutes late. She's like, yeah, but I just need to make sure, like, by showing up late, it proves that, hey, you would be willing to wait for me. And it's like, yeah. And it's like, yeah, but did you, I mean, I saved your life. He's like, yeah, it's not really. He's like, the plane had been bombed up like that for like years. So the situation will play out the same. She's like, so every time I got on that plane, it was already hooked up with bombs and stuff. He's like, yes. Which you're like, Jesus, like every time that plane was used, like how many people, Jinbei, probably even Wrestler Harold's probably been on it. Like, I think everyone's kind of been on that plane to some extent. And you're telling me for years it's been strapped with bombs because it was always going to be his contingency plan to disappear. But it's like, hey, the person that was the pilot, he isn't dead either. It's Edward, which I'm like, this isn't our first time seeing Edward, is it? Because like it's Andrew McCarthy, but I was like, he's directed. Has he been in a show before? I don't remember. Because I think because I know he does a lot of directing on the, I don't know if he does a lot of movies. I know he does a lot of TV because I see his name pop up from time to time. I don't see him in a lot of stuff, but I see that he directs a lot. So I don't know if he does more directing than like starring in. I want to say the last thing I remember seeing him in, and once again, I just don't watch stuff of that. Because I want to say like Royal Pains was the thing I saw him, pop in from time to time. And I think he probably directed episodes of that as well. I want to say, what was the one? Was it My Cousin, not My Cousin, Weekend at Bernie's, I believe? It's like, I think that's the only movie I've ever seen Andrew McCarthy in. It can't be, is it? I don't know. I think that's the movie I'm thinking of. Yeah, like Weekends at Bernie's. I believe that was, I forgot who the other lead in that was. It's going to bother the crap out of me. Weekend at Bernie's is the movie I was thinking of. It was Jonathan Silverman was the other lead in it. And I was like, he's one of those actors where it's like, hey, I've seen you and stuff. And I couldn't remember what I knew him from. I'd probably say the most recent thing I'd seen him in was Good Girls. He was in the final. Was he in the previous? No, I think he was in 13 episodes, so I think it was probably the entire final season of Good Girls, probably. Either way, tangents and all this. I'm sorry, I went on a whole tangent, but it's like, yeah, good work. He's like, yeah, thank you, sir. It was pretty exhilarating. So I'm curious what Weech is going to do, because later on, Reddington's like, oh yeah, that was my last stop, was to see Harold, because of course he would. It makes you wonder what other stops he made along the way, probably like closing out some other stuff as well. But when it's all said and done, now Reddington's in the wind again. Now we're kind of going a little full circle. I mean, in fact, we're kind of going a little season 3-ish with Red being on the run, where, the AG is like, yo, I'm gonna mince words with you. Like, home dude, Arthur, he's a Boy Scout. He's so caught up in this. Like, you know, I'm not gonna sit here and chastise you. We're both old men at this Harold. But at the end of the day, I'm hiring your task force. 836 is back on the books now, because you're going to be hunting Reddington. You guys have worked with him longest. You know him the best. So you're going after him, because if you don't go after him, I'm going to prosecute each and every one of you. So it's either his head on a pike or yours. You know, sorry, but my hands are tied. So then that unfortunate situation doesn't sit well with Arthur, but Nixon's like, yeah, but they'll show their hands. The fact of the matter is, all we have to do is wait for them to reveal themselves. If they try to help Reddington, so be it. Then we'll be there to kind of bust him, blah, 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 blah. So we're going to have to stand down for now. I don't see Arthur as a standing down type. He was told multiple times to stand down, but he never stood down. So we shall see how that all plays out. But like I said, especially with a wrestler with a chip on his shoulder, understandable chip on his shoulder now because of the whole Jonathan situation. So, but Red visiting Harold one more time, being like, oh, this is what's happened and everything. It's like, okay, so he's like, basically, I see how the situation is. It's like, yeah, it's kind of on me for like going as hard in the paint as I did against the AG. Now he's kind of responding with these theatrics. Not even theatrics, they're credible threats. So I understand you got to do what you got to do. And he's like, yeah, but come on, Harold. Like, all we're doing is going back to cops and robbers, and I'm glad that you're the cop. He's like, even, come on, Donald's got to be happy about it. It'd be like on the good old times of Donald hunting me down. And it's like, yeah, you know, so it's like, yeah, let the game begin. He's like, Harold's like, what do you want me to do? He's like, try and catch me. And it's like, let's see if you can do it. So, kind of a wild place to be at the end of all of this. So, how will this play out? Will Red kind of like go out in like a blaze of glory, like dying? How would this whole thing play out with Arthur? Like, will he suffer any ramifications for what he set in motion? Like I said, what happens to this task force after all of this? Like I said, is Red, who was going to initially leave the Blacklist to Liz, like, is he going to leave it to the squad? The task force is still, they have their, they have the remnants of Reddington's Blacklist to potentially, like, maybe, like, some remnants of his system. But like I said, it's been heavily gutted because of two major parts of his enterprise. One of them being part of that intelligence gathering network was the Room 417 stuff. But it's like, that's been gutted. So how can the Blacklist continue to exist? But to be fair, what did Reddington say to everyone? It's like, yeah, I've forgotten more than I know about all the bugs. Like, my network of information is so vast. You're thinking the task force only knows a fraction of what I've done. Dembe's like, yo, I've worked for Red for 20 years. I don't really know him, because every partner in Red's business, no one ever really knew everything. Because that even makes you go like, how much did Kate actually really know? She knew where a lot of the bones were buried, but she might have been the last person to really know everything. Like, how much did Marvin knew enough to bring down like the organization too in a similar fashion, but it's like, how much did you really know about everything? I'm sure there was stuff that even, I mean, because Kate was there at the beginning, so she might have been the only person in existence who knew everything. But like, to be fair, like Dembe and everyone else was compartmentalized, but once again, the situation is Kate was there at the beginning, so it put her in a very, very unique position compared to everyone else. So even if Kate did know everything, she's long since dead. So there is no one who really know the complete ins and out. But I would even make the argument probably there was stuff that was even compartmentalized away from her, but, you know, who knows. She was like the fixer. Once again, she knew where the bodies were buried, but she didn't know everything probably. Either way. So that's why I was like, there's got to be some remnants of the Blacklist left. Something left there that Red is going to give to them that's going to make it so that they continue their work as a task force. I think Sia's going to stick around. I wonder will we get like a final appearance from like Agent Park or Aram? Probably not. I mean, we got one appearance from Aram at the beginning of the first episode, but that might be all we get. I don't know if we're going to get anything from Park in the final episodes or anything like that. Like I said, I'm also curious, like, is there going to be like a time skip then where we get to see Agnes older and see what path she ends up choosing, kind of just giving you an eye and a purview of just kind of where this story would have gone like years down the road, stuff like that. I'm curious about. I'm just really curious, like, what the ending of this is going to look like. I mean, once again, 2 full episodes to see how this all plays out with the task force hunting Red down, the people who know him best, at least know enough to try and take him down. So, will there be other final appearances from people we get to see? I'm so excited to see what the final 2 episodes of the Blacklist, which still feels so wild to say that after all these years, we're here at the end. 2 final episodes. I'm getting to this episode late, so it's obviously not even a week. Only got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so only 4 days until we see how this all comes to an end. So it's going to be wild. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good